Hey everybody, Mo here, and this week I'm bringing you guys another Meta Monday video. So, a lot's happened in the last week. We've had a new set, or not a new set, sorry, a new patch dropped, so a new season has started. Patch 2.18 brought with it a lot of changes, a huge nerf to Sparklefly slash Zoe Nami is really hard to play. I haven't seen that deck at all. They nerfed a lot of cards in Draven Scion and Poppy Burn. And everything just like stone stackers and all that type of stuff. And new season. So new season means new race to masters, or a new way to climb. So a lot of people use this early season as a way to climb as fast as they can to masters, because it's a lot easier to gain LP early on in masters. That's why a lot of the times we'll see people hit a really high LP number, like 550 or so LP in the first week or so, and then just completely stop playing, because the way the MMR system works and LP works in LOR is it just like kind of refreshes at the start of each season. So you gain about 20 to 25 LP per win in Masters early on, and it makes it a lot easier to get to that 550 LP number. Whereas later in the season, as you all know, whenever you hit Masters, you usually only gain 15, lose 20 to 25. So you're gaining 5 to 10 more LP per win early season. So a lot of people use that to their advantage and climb. So what that means is we're going to see what people are using to climb successfully in Platinum Plus. So the reason we're going to do Platinum Plus is because rank reset, obviously. So all of the Masters players moved to Platinum. So everyone in Platinum is going to be Masters, or almost everyone is going to be Masters, meaning it'd be the exact same as looking at a Masters Plus chart. Also, if you were to look at only Diamond Plus or Masters Plus right now, you'd have very little data, because there are very few. I think NA currently has like 5 Masters players. So, yeah, you just wouldn't get realistic data, or very much data, out of just Diamond and Masters Plus. So I went ahead and included Platinum in it. So I'm going to go over the top 8 decks that are doing well, unique decks. So if you see here, we have like Poppy Zed on here twice for the top 8. We're just going to take the best performing deck and move down onwards. And we're going to kind of look over those, maybe guess, why they're in the top 8. For the most part, it's just going to be a bunch of refined decks. Aggro takes over like half of this list. So it'll be interesting. And then towards the end, I'll give you guys my own like anti-meta Dark Horse style deck that I think would do really good if more people played it, and it looks really good compared to these top 8 decks. So before we get into all of that, I wanted to remind you guys that 70% of the people that watch my videos aren't actually subscribed to me. So if you guys could do me a huge favor and click the subscribe button, it'd help me out so much with the YouTube algorithm. We're trying to hit 5,000 subs by the end of the year, so we can start 2022 off extremely strong at 5K subs. So I would really appreciate it if you hit the bell, help me out with the YouTube algorithm, and yeah, so that's it for the intro. Let's get into the Meta Monday. Hey everyone, Mo here, and before the video begins, I just want to let you guys know that my schedule is opened up for me to do coaching again. So if you're interested in private one-on-one coaching for me to help you, whether you're a newer player and you want to excel at the game very quickly and learn the fundamentals without developing any bad habits early, or if you're an experienced player who's already maybe platinum or diamond and you're top 1%, but you need some help filling in the gap to get you to that 0.01%, to make you just some of the best of the best, then hit me up on Discord and I can get you in some private one-on-one coaching lessons to help you polish up any skills you want to refine and help you learn all of the secrets to becoming a top player. That's it. I hope you enjoy the video. Alright, so first on this list we have Poppy Zed. So Poppy Zed is the highest win rate right now at 65%. It's the highest win rate deck. So I mean, it's not surprising, right? Aggro does really well at the start of each season and at the start of like rank resets and stuff like that, because aggro does 2 things really well. One, it punishes non-polished decks, like non-refined decks. It punishes those extremely well, because you're trying to test out something, or maybe it's like a late game combo or a very specific combo and you don't know if it works with your new deck. And what aggro does is it just says, I don't care what you're doing, I'm just going to go fast, and if you can't deal with me, you're dead. So basically, if your deck is ever unrefined and it kind of dirtles a little bit, or you're not really sure what its weaknesses are, unless it very clearly has the intention to beat aggro has a really good chance of just beating you, because it is refined and it is really fast. And a lot of the good aggro decks are extremely consistent, so they know what their game plan is, they know how to execute it well, they know exactly what to do. And if you're playing a brand new deck that stumbles for like 1 turn against some of these aggro decks, you're just going to fall so far behind that it's going to be extremely hard for you to catch up. So what makes Zed Poppy kind of special? Like, why is it the best aggro deck that's doing well right now? No, it's because of the elusive keyword, right? So elusive has been around since the very beginning of LoR, and it's been a problem for a lot of decks because of the uninteractability of these units. For instance, every other mid-range deck or every other unit-based deck that isn't elusives can't actually deal with elusives unless they have, very specific keywords like Challenger, or if you're also in specifically Demacia and specifically have Sharp Sight. It's really hard for you to deal with these units because you can't block them. You just can't deal with them. So what the elusive player just does is they just go, I don't care what you're doing. I'm going to play my units. I'm going to make them big. I'm going to rally. You can't stop either of these because you're not playing Deny or elusives because you're not in Ionia. And I'm going to kill you in like 2 turns. So, yeah, this is really big. The upside with Poppy Zed that I really like a lot. I've been telling people to play Poppy Zed for a good while when people were still playing like Poppy Lulu Drift. I told people to just play Zed because Lulu and Poppy do about the same thing. Both of them just want to buff up your small units to make your little elusives big, right? So the downside to the elusives is that they're a lot smaller. They used to be a lot bigger. Riot realized that that's not okay, so they went ahead and nerfed all their stat lines. All but just Young Witch here has 1 HP, so like 1 HP, 1 HP, 1 HP, 1 HP unit, all your elusives do. So you want to pair that with something that makes them bigger. So that's what Lulu used to do. Well, now that we have Poppy literally does that, but just better. Because instead of just buffing one unit, like +2 or 3 attack at best, Poppy instead buffs all of your units +1 attack. And the biggest thing is it gives them the attack and the health permanently. So it's not just like, oh, I'm going to make my 2-1 for turn a 4-4, and then the very next turn they're just going to be able to kill it for 1 HP. Poppy makes your units permanently grow and make them permanently big. If Poppy ever gets to attack twice, then the game is basically just over. Whereas Lulu, you can attack twice and not necessarily have the game over. And the reason I like Zed over Lulu is because Zed can be its own win condition. And Zed pairs really well with Poppy. I played a lot of Lulu Zed. I brought Lulu Zed to Seasonals and won with it. I really liked the pairing of put Zed as his own threat with Lulu. So now you have to decide, do I get rid of if your opponent has to decide, do I want to kill the Zed because that's threatening lethal on me, or do I want to kill the Lulu because that's making the small units big? Like, what do I do here? And it's the exact same concept here. I don't want to play 2 units that buff my small units when I'd rather just have Poppy that could also buff my Zed, right? Or have its own threat, or threaten itself in Zed. This deck list isn't playing any Ghost, but I've seen a lot of people play, the 1 or 2 of Ghost. So when you do get the Zed leveled up, you can Ghost Zed and then just win the game off of that alone. Or you Ghost Poppy and then rally or something like that, and then that will usually win you the game. So that's very, very doable. But yeah, Poppy Zed, elusive aggro style deck, even with the Relentless Pursuit nerf, and even with Relentless Pursuit being bugged right now, the deck still has the highest win rate in Platinum Plus, so, or this specific deck list has the highest win rate in Platinum Plus, so really shows you like how nuts the deck can be. So, on to deck number 2 is Scion Draven. Basically, the Boogeyman of Ladder hasn't gone anywhere. It endured double nerfs here. Draven went down to a 3-2. Lost Soul, the Twin Blade Revenant lost Challenger and gained the Fearsome keyword. Doesn't seem to matter. People are still just hard jamming this deck, and it's apparently still doing really, really well, which surprises me. I didn't think the Lost Soul nerf was going to be too big. I don't even know if the Lost Soul nerf is a nerf. Giving it Fearsome just makes it a really, really good, like, mid-range pseudo aggro tool, because now some of your matchups kind of get a lot more favored for you. Like, for instance, the Bandle Tree matchup used to be pretty bad for Scion Draven. Well, now with Lost Soul, the Twin Blade having Fearsome, one of the biggest weaknesses to the Bandle Tree deck is they don't have many Fearsome blockers, especially now that Aloof got nerfed. So I think they have exactly like the 3-2 is their only Fearsome blocker if they don't attack with Poppy in Bandle Tree. So because of that, you get to apply a lot of pressure now with this Twin Blade Revenant on some of your bad matchups. And also, I guess it received triple nerfs because Aloof Travelers got nerfed, so it's no longer just a big value unit that you want to shove in every single deck. So people kind of took that out, started running Sentries. One of Farron's seems to be extremely common now. Most decks were already on the Sentry Flock, but not all of them. And I think now with Aloof being gone, it kind of just forces everybody to be on Sentry Flock as a game plan. But yeah, this deck doesn't seem to be going anywhere. I think the biggest thing that was going to hurt it was the Draven nerf. I thought Draven going to 2 HP was going to make the card like really bad. It dies to so much now. It dies to like the 2/1 Challenger Bird. It dies to Avalanche. It dies to it just dies to so much stuff. Dies to Mystic Shot now for the mirror match. It just dies to a whole lot that I thought was gonna make Draven unplayable, but maybe getting the free axe is enough to carry it in this deck, or if you just get to attack once with it or block once with it, even if you're just playing a 3-mana 3/2 blocker and get 2 axes, that could be enough to carry this discard style deck. Who knows? I haven't played it since in the new patch. I just kind of assumed it was going to be dead, but it's a deck that I'll try out now. So yeah, Boogeyman, it doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. So if you have Draven Scion, you know how to play Draven Scion, maybe that's the deck you should be playing right now. Number 3, we have Ping City. Ping City, Bandle Pirates, whatever you want to call it, the TF Bilgewater deck with Bandle City is still doing really strong. Fun fact, Lecturing Yordle is still an extremely broken card. They did not nerf Lecturing Yordle to be a 3/4, which really surprised me. I thought for sure, okay, I didn't think this card was going to be nerfed, but I wouldn't have been surprised if it was nerfed. I think this card is extremely broken, and I think it will eventually get nerfed, but it wasn't on the forefront of a lot of people's complaints, so I understand why it wasn't nerfed, but I would not be surprised at all if it is nerfed. I think it should be nerfed. I think this card is absolutely broken. A card that did get nerfed in this deck, though, was Stone Stackers. It went from being a 2-mana 2/2 tough impact to a 2-mana 2/3 impact. So a lot of people are saying, oh, well, that doesn't matter. It still dies to a 3-power unit. It still doesn't die to a 2-power unit on turn 2. Like, oh, the stat line is still good. Whatever, card's still broken. Yes, the stat line is still good for a 2-drop. 2-mana 2/3 is a very solid stat line. However, the biggest thing now is Tough was so broken because of things like the mirror match, or things that did 1 damage over and over again. You know, Vile Feast, Pokey Stick, Make It Rain. All of these things were very common cards. Like Pokey Stick is and Vile Feast are extremely common cards to be playing. And if you can't kill Stone Stackers with it, you know, that's really sad. So it made it really hard, like, you know, chump blocking. You couldn't be able to block it with a 2-power unit and then a 1-power unit. You had to trade off 2 2-power units because it had Tough, so a 1-power unit didn't do any damage to it. So the Tough keyword was actually insane. So people that don't think it's a nerf, it's very clearly a nerf. It's a really good nerf. I definitely think the card is still playable. Either, you know, I can see you definitely getting 2 impact triggers still a lot of the times, but it was definitely a pretty big nerf, but still playable. The deck is still really good. The biggest thing this deck has going for it is that its worst matchup used to be Nami Zoe, and Nami Zoe just isn't a deck anymore because Sparklefly nerf was extremely big, and kind of made that deck just not as good. So Nami is still really good. You just play like Nami Fizz or Nami something with PNZ, Flash of Brilliance, you still level Nami on 4. Good job. You just don't get the giant lifesteal unit, which, you know, I agree with, but that's a whole nother video. Basically, the worst matchup for this deck is no longer a deck, so I could see it thriving a lot in the current meta game, and, you know, it seems to be doing just that. It's number 3 on the deck leaderboard right now. And if you build it aggressively, like if you saw this version, only plays 1 Dreadway. I agree with that. I actually agree with 0 Dreadway personally. I like playing 0 Dreadway in mine, kind of being more aggressive with the 9, either 9 1-drops or playing the triple double up. And this would be almost my exact version I would play on ladder. And just build it more aggressively so you can hang with the aggressive early decks, but then you still have all of the burn and consistent damage against the, like, mid-range and late-game decks. So deck number 4 is another aggro deck. So we're going to hit a pocket here of triple aggro decks. Like I said, you know, when we went over Poppy Zed, aggro really does dominate early season. You will see a lot of these numbers most of the time will die down. They're not as broken as they look. It's just that they're really strong early season for the things I listed already of being able to dominate the unrefined and kind of for fun players, as well as the way the ladder reset works is it shoved all of the Masters players into Platinum. So you will have players like rank 1 players playing against like rank, you know, 2,000 players in Masters. Yes, they're both still Masters, but the skill difference there is still going to be fairly large most of the time. So it's a combination of being able to beat not great players, as well as just being able to beat unrefined or for fun lists. Like, I've played a lot, like, I'm a good player, and I've played a lot of for fun decks and just gotten smoked by aggro. So because I wasn't playing a very refined tier 1 deck, I got punished by an aggro deck and they just kind of farmed me for LP. And that's going to be something that's a common theme between all these aggro decks early season. So you see here, aggro deck was number 1, where you hit a pocket here of 3 aggro decks, so half of the top 8 is aggro decks. And it's Ziggs Poppy. Ziggs Poppy is, I'm not very surprised at all that this deck is still broken. all that happened, for those of you that don't know, for the patch notes, was, again, Stone Stackers got nerfed here, but still a very fine card, still very playable. The other card that got nerfed was Tenor of Terror. It actually got double nerfed. That card got basically gutted. I think that card is horrible now. I think it's pretty unplayable, to be honest with you. The 3-2 turned into a 3-1, so it dies to a whole bunch, and then the 2-3 turned into a 1-3, so the card doesn't really trade into anything well, so it's really awkward for attacking, and that's what you want to do with those cards, is attack. So yeah, so that card got pretty gutted, but people just use this as an opportunity to go up to triple Lecturing Yordle, which I already was on. I was already on triple Lecturing Yordle, because Lecturing Yordle is a broken card, so it makes a lot of sense that people finally went up to Lecturing Yordle. I'm not sure why it took Tenor of Terror to get nerfed for people to go to this broken card, but hey, whatever it takes for people to finally learn that the Lecturing Yordle is broken. Maybe this will be what it takes to get the card nerfed. We'll see. But yeah, not much to say here. Just an extremely good aggro deck. Very consistent. It reminds me a lot of the old Pirate list, where every single early game meta, Pirates completely dominated. And that's what this is. It's basically just Pirates 2.0, Zoomer Pirates. And it's dominating in an early season, you know, unrefined meta. So not really too much to say there, except it's just kind of a really good aggro deck. Next, we have another good aggro deck, which is Lurk. Lurk's been doing really, really well. Again, nothing really special about it as much as any type of special things about it. It's just a really good aggro deck. A lot of people have this idea that Lurk is a high roll deck, which I don't agree with at all, and I've said that since Lurk basically came out. I don't think it's a high roll deck. I think people just focus more on the times they low roll, and they don't build it necessarily correctly. I don't think Lurk is like a tier 1 deck by any means, but I definitely think that you will have more good games on Lurk, like more games that are playable and have like high-end or high-rolly style looks to it, and then you will have games that are just completely unplayable. However, that being said, you know, it is Lurk, so you live by the Lurk, you die by the Lurk. You never know if you're going to have a turn 1 mana 3-1 fearsome, or if you're not going to have any Lurk, and then by turn 3 comes around and it's still a 1-1 fearsome unit. So there's definitely like, this is the gambler's deck for sure. If you have a gambling addiction, play Lurk. However, your highs are still going to dominate any like deck that stumbles at all. It's going to dominate any deck that's not very good or refined. The other good thing that Lurk has going for it is it destroys dragons. This card, or this deck, makes single combat not a card. It plays like 1 mana 5/5s, or not 5/5s, but 1 mana 5/2s. And because the toughness doesn't really matter, because Dragons doesn't play anything like Mystic Shot, that's usually a downside to Lurk, is you have a unit that's very big on the power side, but low on the toughness side. So like, for instance, if Xerxai Hatchling is a 1 mana 5/1, that's really bad against a lot of decks that have removal, because 1 HP is really easy to kill. Against Dragons, though, they don't have any direct damage other than like single combat for removal spells. So if you play a 1 mana 5/1, it's just as good as playing, you know, a 1 mana just like removal spell on any dragon that they play. And it makes single combat just not a card. Lurk was actually one of the first reasons why dragons kind of fell off, because a lot of people were playing dragons, I remember back during like Azir Aurelia, but the combination of Azir Aurelia still beating dragons with things like Marshall, and then Lurk also beating dragons, kind of made dragons just completely fall off. So if you want to beat dragons, you play Lurk. And that's, you know, basically the name of the game, because dragons is the most played deck during ladder right now. Next we have, for the last 3, so this is going to be number 6, we have Bandle Tree. So I did not expect Bandle Tree to do well at all during this patch, especially with the Lost Soul getting changed to have Fearsome and not Challenger. I could only assume that that makes one of your only good matchups worse. But it does beat mid-range decks, so I could totally see you beating things like dragons, you know, extremely well. I could see you beating other mid-range decks in general just fairly well, because you get to spam out a bunch of blockers. Maybe you're good into the elusive piles because you do all the damage with things like Pokestick, Buster Shot, Flock. You're good into, again, like I said, dragons with the mini-morph. So this very much seems to be like an anti-meta deck also, where if you expect to be a lot of mid-range decks like dragons, maybe even Plunder, stuff like that, possibly still Draven Scion, even though I can only assume that matchup is not good for you anymore. Then here you go, you know, play Bandle Tree. Bandle Tree is definitely not dead, I just didn't expect it to do very well. It's definitely more of a meta call, where if there's the more mid-range decks in the meta, the better Bandle Tree is. And then so next we're going to skip over these two because they're repeats of decks that are already in. So the last two decks we're going to go over here is going to be Plunder and Dragons. So Dragons here is going to be coming in at number 7 spot. Yeah, I mean, this doesn't surprise anybody, right? Dragons got handed a boatload of buffs off of the new patch. So I'd almost say that if Dragons doesn't do well after all of these buffs, then maybe you guys need to stop with the Dragon Copium and just save your shards on Dragons. If they can't win with like buffed Dragon's Clutch, buffed Herald of Dragons, the ruined Dragon Guard has definitely helped out a lot. I don't know if it's going to be a 3 of in each deck, but it's definitely helped out a lot with making your units just really, really big. But basically with the Dragon's Clutch giving you a nice actual way to end a lot of games, and with the Herald of Dragons making you have a lot more tempo because you get to play things like 3 mana Shyvana, 4 mana Screeching Dragon, you know, stuff like that. If Dragons can't do well after all of these buffs, then maybe Dragons are just destined to be doomed. But with that being said, it's obviously doing well. It's made the top 8 list of decks doing well this week, in the opening week at least, and they're not refined. So if a deck can make a new, I'm going to call it a new deck because it hasn't been played in a long time and it's playing a lot of new cards. If a new deck can be top 8 and it's not even refined in the first week of buffs and stuff like that, I can only get more excited for it. Like, it's only going to go up from here because people are going to figure out, like, this is the best performing list, and it doesn't even have, you know, Jarvan. So it's playing 3 Asol, which I think is weird. So you take out, like, an Asol, put in a Jarvan. Maybe you take out, like, White Flame Protector, put in something else. Like, you can find a way to make this list just better. And as the better these Dragon lists get with all these buffs, the higher we're going to see the win rate climb, and we're going to eventually see Dragons take off and be one of those tier 1, tier 1.5 decks very, very soon, hopefully. So I have a lot of hope for Dragons. I think they're going to do well. I think Riot also wants Dragons to do well, so they'll probably end up doing well. We'll see. And the last deck here is Plunder. So the anti-mid-range deck. Plunder beats Dragons. It beats Scion Draven. It beats all of the other mid-range decks because Sejuani gets to frostbite the entire team, so you can't do anything crazy like that. It's just really, really good. Between things like Sejuani frostbiting the entire enemy team and Monster Harpoon always going to be a 3-mana deal 5 damage in this deck, you have a lot of anti-mid-range tools in this deck. So I could definitely see why people are playing Plunder. I don't like Plunder because I think the deck is extremely clunky. I think it's a very, very solid tier 2 deck. It's probably one of the better tier 2 decks because it does do so well into the meta mid-range decks. However, because it stumbles so hard into a lot of the aggro decks, it stumbles into itself a lot of the times. Like, you can have hands that we saw at, you know, the World Championships. People were drawing hands of like double Sejuani, double Gangplank, and you just didn't get to play cards for the first 4 turns, and then by the time you did play a card, it was just a 5-mana 5/5 overwhelm at that point. So because the deck has a lot of issues and clunkiness of itself, and it can easily lose to some aggressive decks, or if you don't have your champion on turn 5 or 6, your deck's kind of bad. That's why I don't think it'll ever be a tier 1 deck, and that's why I don't think it's a tier 1 deck right now, but I think it's an extremely solid tier 2 deck. If you want to beat other mid-range decks, like if you want to beat Silver Auction, if you want to beat Scion Draven, Dragon, stuff like that, then Plunder is your deck for sure. So that's going to round out the top 8 list for this week. So we're going to finish it off here. I have a secret meta deck that I think could do really, really well in the meta. I'm actually going to be streaming it tonight on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/emotional. I'll be trying to hit Diamond tonight. I haven't actually climbed at all. I've just been having fun. So we're going to use this deck to try and climb, and that deck's actually going to be Viego Ionia. I think Viego Ionia is in a really, really good spot if you look at the top 8 list we just went over. It's really good into Dragons because a leveled up Viego beats any mid-range deck. A leveled Viego just destroys mid-range on the spot. On top of that, it's fairly easy to stall against mid-range decks because you're making a bunch of ephemeral blockers. So all of your blockers are going to be, one, like fairly decent in size, and then 2, they're ephemeral, so you just pump out blockers with things like Hydrovine every single turn. So if you get a Hydrovine out, you get a free blocker. You just block their biggest thing with an ephemeral unit that you're going to throw away anyways. Boom, you're chilling. You played things in the Ionia package like Concussive Palm, Spirit's Refuge, Twin Discipline, stuff like that to make your trades really, really good. So if you're against a Draven Scion player and they're trying to attack you with, Scion, boom, Concussive Palm, stalls. If they are trying to attack you with Scion, you don't even need Concussive Palm. You can just say, okay, Spirit's Refuge my unit, boom. I gain all of that life back that your overwhelm is doing to me. It's really nice. If they try and kill any of your units, you have Twin Discipline. So if they try to use Concerted Strike or single combat or anything like that, Twin Disciplines is really good at keeping your unit alive. If you're against aggro, you can play things like the Darkwater Scourge and Deathmark combo. So you have a 5/5 lifelink unit now in play. Just China chilling. You play Vile Feast. If you don't want to play the Dark Scourge with Deathmark combo, you can just play Faithful. So you have a 4/2 on turn 3 with Lifesteal. Like, you have game against every single archetype, which is really, really good. I think Viego is extremely underrated right now. I think Viego Ionia is a really, really good deck. I'll have a link to that deck link, or to that deck code down in the description below. If you want to try out the Viego Ionia deck I'm going to be using to try and climb to Masters or climb to Diamond with tonight, yeah, check that out below. So that's it for this Meta Monday. It's a pretty long one, pretty big one, because we did have, you know, a brand new season reset. So I wanted to explain why each of these decks are on this top 8 and kind of what to expect for the future. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comments below if you want to see more of these Meta Mondays every week. I'll be writing articles soon over on Runeterra CCG, so go and check out those articles. I'll have an article recap of each Meta Monday guide, as well as any deck guides I make. I'll mention this again too, so I'll make sure to link that down in the description below for you guys to check out. So that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one.